Once upon a time, in a small sun-baked village tucked between rolling farmlands and the winding banks of the Ogun River in western Nigeria, there lived a girl named Kemi Folad. She was barely 19, with skin like warm bronze and hair always tied in soft, patient knots with a piece of old Ankara cloth. Her eyes, though pale and unseeing, seemed to hold the weight of stories even older than the village itself. Kemi was blind from birth, but that did not stop her from living. Every morning before the first cock crowed, Kemi would rise, her small hands feeling the edges of the walls as she made her way to the open-air kitchen beside her father's crumbling hut. She would light the fire, sweep the sandy ground, and hum softly, a tune only the spirits of dawn understood. But even as her body moved like a ritual, her heart carried a wound. "Papa," she once whispered, "why did God make me this way?" Her father had no answer. Only a sigh, only silence. The village of Apanlawa was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The market women shouted prices louder than the mosque's morning prayer, and children chased goats down red dirt paths. Yet somehow, Kemi still felt invisible. Not because of her blindness, but because of how people saw her. "Ah, poor girl," they'd murmur as she passed. "Who will marry her now? Blind and broke? Omo, she's finished." They thought she couldn't hear. They were wrong. Her father, Baba Falad, was once a great yam farmer, known from Oyo to Abeokuta. But sickness stole his strength, and death stole his pride. Now, he limped slowly behind a rusted cutlass, farming for others just to earn scraps. Kemi longed for more. Not riches, not sight, just freedom. Freedom to walk without whispers. Freedom to be seen as whole. On the day her world began to change, the rain came without warning. Thick, heavy drops falling from an angry sky. Thunder cracked like a drum in a masquerade procession. Kemi stood under the thatch roof, arms crossed, listening. She loved the rain. To her, it felt like justice, like the sky was crying for her too. Suddenly, a voice pierced the sound of the storm. Auntie Kemi, your papa say make you come quick." It was Tund, the little boy from next door, breathless, dripping. "Why?" she asked, her voice calm but tight. "A man done come. Him say he want marry you." Kemi froze, not because she was excited, not because she believed, but because it made no sense. "Marry me?" she whispered. "Who?" And just like that, everything shifted. What kind of man comes to propose marriage to a poor blind girl he's never met? Especially in the middle of a thunderstorm? Kemi slowly tied her wrapper tighter and stepped out into the rain. It was falling heavier now, turning the red soil into soft mud and soaking the edges of Kemi's wrapper. But she didn't care. Her bare feet pressed into the earth as she followed Tund's voice. Slowly, carefully, every step guided by memory. The small hut was just ahead. She could already smell the smoke from the firewood, and the faint bitterness of roasted groundnuts Baba had been chewing since morning. But there was something else in the air now. Cologne. Clean, subtle. Not the kind worn by farmers or palm wine tappers. No, this one smelled expensive. Kemi stepped inside. "Ah, my daughter, come," Baba Falad said, his voice shaky with nerves. "Come sit." Kemi could feel it. The tension, thick as OG left too long on fire. She lowered herself onto the mat, folded her legs, and tilted her head. "You wanted to see me?" she said quietly. There was a pause. Then, "Yes." The man's voice was low, soft, like someone used to holding power, but hiding it. "My name is Iola. I live near the riverbank. I came to ask for your hand in marriage." Silence. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Kemi smiled faintly. "Why?" Iola took a deep breath. Baba Falad cleared his throat. "Kemi, listen to him. He's a good man, a quiet man. He came this morning, asked for your hand with respect." "But why me?" Kemi asked again, turning her face toward the stranger. "You know I cannot see." Iola shifted. "I don't need your eyes," he said simply. "I need your heart." The words hung in the air like palm fronds caught in the wind. Kemi didn't respond. Later that night, as the rain finally slowed, Kemi sat alone by the window, tracing the pattern of the wooden frame with her fingers. She didn't trust easily. And something about Iola's calmness unsettled her. "You're hiding something," she whispered into the darkness. She didn't know how she knew, but she did. The next morning, the village woke to a shock. Iola had returned, not with wealth, not with gifts, but with a simple bag, a mat, and a folded wrapper. He had moved into Baba Falad's compound. He said he wanted to prove himself, that he would stay and live like them. Until Kemi made her decision. The villagers laughed, pointed, mocked. From where did this one fall? Who marries a blind girl and moves into her father's poor house? Na Jazo. Or maybe he's mad. But Iola didn't respond. He just swept the compound, fetched water, and helped Baba Falad with the farm. Kemi remained silent. That night, as the moon pushed through the clouds, Kemi stepped outside. Iola was sitting under the mango tree, alone. She walked toward him slowly. "You're not from this village," she said. "You speak like someone who's seen cities." Iola chuckled. "Maybe I have. So why are you here?" A pause. "Because sometimes, the richest soil is found where no one is looking." Kemi blinked. She didn't understand, but her heart did something strange. It skipped. That night, the moon was full, but its light could not enter Kemi's world. Still, she felt it. She always did. The cool breeze that carried the scent of ripe pawpaw, the distant hoot of an owl from the forest edge, the quiet sound of Iola's breathing beneath the mango tree. She sat beside him, not too close, not too far. "You speak like someone who has eaten from many tables," she said. "Yet you sit here with us, eating corn and groundnut." Iola laughed gently. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," she replied. "It's just strange." Silence followed. Not the kind that felt awkward, the kind that tasted like truth. For 2 weeks, Iola lived like a villager. He rose with the first rooster. He bathed with cold water in the open. He walked barefoot through the yam farm, his hands stained red with soil. The villagers watched with suspicious eyes. "Him day pretend," they whispered. "Just wait, go run." But Iola stayed. He never raised his voice, never looked down on anyone. And slowly, the whispers turned into nods. "Maybe this one gets sense. He day humble. Still, why this blind girl?" Kemi kept her distance. She didn't know if what she was feeling was curiosity or danger. She had been taught that men lie with sweet tongues and kind eyes. But Iola was different. He never flattered her, never made promises. He just showed up, every day. One afternoon, the market was full of noise. Women were bargaining, children screaming, goats wandering freely like royalty. Baba Falad had sent Kemi with Tund to buy Gary. As she stood under the orange tree, listening to the hum of village life, a stranger's voice sliced through the crowd. "Is that not the blind girl? What's she doing walking alone? Where is her helper now?" The mockery was sharp. Laughter followed. But before Kemi could open her mouth to respond, someone stepped in. "Iola, she walks better than you see," he said coldly. "And unlike you, she does not need to look down on others to feel tall." The market went silent. Then, whispers. Kemi's cheeks burned, not from shame but something else. Pride. Later that evening, Kemi sat on the edge of the riverbank, letting the cold water run over her feet. Iola sat beside her again. "Why do you defend me like that?" she asked. "Because you are worth defending," he replied. "Even though I can't see?" Iola leaned closer. "You see more than most people who have eyes." A breeze blew between them, carrying the smell of rain. Kemi's heart raced, but still she didn't trust it. She had learned long ago that pain often wore the face of love. That night, in her dreams, she saw light. Not real light, but a memory, a flicker. She was standing in a place she didn't recognize, with laughter and music echoing around her. Iola stood beside her, dressed in white, smiling. Then suddenly, the music stopped. A door slammed. Darkness fell again. She woke up sweating. Her hands trembled. Something was coming. Something big. The morning came with a strange stillness. The birds were quiet. The village air was thick. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. Kemi hadn't slept well. The dream still clung to her like wet fabric. She couldn't explain it, but something inside her had shifted, like the earth beneath her feet was no longer solid. Baba Falad noticed her silence. "Kemi, you know they talked this morning," he said gently. "Something worry you?" She only shook her head. "No, Papa. I'm just thinking." But even he could see it in her face. Something was building. Meanwhile, Ayoola had gone missing since dawn. He left no word, no message, just vanished. For a man who had never missed morning prayers or failed to fetch water for Baba Falad, it was strange. Too strange. By mid-afternoon, the village had begun to buzz again. "Ah, Edon run. I talk am. No be ordinary person be that man. He come see say the girl blind for real, he run leave her." The whispers returned like vultures circling a dying goat. Kemi sat on the stool near the firewood, hands resting on her lap, expression unreadable. But her ears? They heard everything. Just before sunset, the air changed. Footsteps, heavy ones. Ayoola returned, but not alone. A tall, elderly man in white followed behind him. His agbada was clean and pressed. His sandals made of leather not bought in any market nearby. He moved with the calm power of a chief, or something higher. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Even the children paused their chasing. "Who be that man way follow am? Ayoola don bring trouble oh." Kemi stood slowly, listening. Ayoola approached her directly. "Kemi, this is my uncle, Chief Aladamaji." The man stepped forward, voice deep and even. "My child, I have heard of your strength, your kindness, your patience. I came to see you with my own eyes." Kemi tilted her head. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why not before?" Chief Aladamaji sighed, a long, heavy sigh. "Because your Ayoola has not told you the truth." A cold wind passed between them. Kemi's fingers tightened around her wrapper. "What truth?" Ayoola turned away. His voice was low. "I never meant to lie to you." "So lie to everyone else?" Kemi said, her tone sharpening for the first time. "You came here with nothing. You told me you were poor." Ayoola nodded slowly. "I did not want to be loved for my money. I wanted to be known for who I really am." "And who are you?" Kemi asked. Her voice did not shake. Silence. Then, "Ayoola Adeniran, sole heir to the Adeniran Group. My family owns farmlands, oil blocks, and 3 companies in Lagos. I walked away from it all to find something real." The words echoed through the village compound like thunder on a dry day. Kemi didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there, like a tree caught between rain and fire. That night, she sat alone by the riverbank, her bare feet in the cold water. She wanted to cry, but the tears refused to come. "Why would a man throw away the world to come here?" she whispered. "Why would he choose me, when even I would not choose me?" Behind her, Ayoola stood in silence. He said nothing, because sometimes the truth speaks louder than any apology. That night, the sky was full of stars, bright, clear, merciless. But Kemi could not see them. She only felt their light pressing down on her skin. Ayoola sat behind her, quiet as a shadow. He hadn't moved since she left him by the riverbank. He just stood there waiting for the one thing money could never buy. Forgiveness. Kemi finally turned to him. Her voice was low, calm, too calm. "So all this while, you've been testing me?" Ayoola took a breath. "No, I've been testing myself." She raised her head slightly, her white eyes sharp. "I don't need your wealth, Ayoola. I needed your truth." "And now that you have it?" he asked. She stood. "I don't know what to do with it." The next day, Chief Aladamaji returned to Lagos. He left behind a car and a briefcase full of papers for Ayoola. The villagers whispered louder now, no longer mocking, but in awe. "You mean that man really get money like that? See how him uncle look like king. Na true oh. Him papa na billionaire." But for Kemi, None of that mattered. Her world was still dark, still quiet, still full of questions. Baba Falad called her into the hut that afternoon. He was sitting on his raffia mat, chewing bitter cola and looking tired. "My daughter," he said, "you know I love you, and I want the best for you." She nodded. "But sometimes, the best thing looks like the worst thing at first." Kemi listened. Iola may be rich, but he is also patient, humble, and most of all, he stayed. That means something. Her father reached for her hand. "Don't throw away a man who sees you with more than just his eyes." Kemi's lips trembled. She said nothing, but something inside her softened. Later that evening, she heard movement outside. Iola was sweeping again, the same way he did before she knew who he truly was. "Even after everything," she said aloud, stepping out. "You're still doing chores?" He looked up, smiled faintly. "Riches don't change who I am. They just change where I sleep." Kemi chuckled. It was small but real. "You lied to me." Iola nodded. "I did. But you stayed." "I did." She took a few steps forward. Her feet stopped just inches from him. "And now what?" He looked at her with eyes full of sincerity. "Now, I wait until you're ready." That night, Kemi sat under the mango tree again, thinking. Not about money, not about blindness, not about Iola, but about her mother. She hadn't thought about her in years. The woman who used to braid her hair and sing lullabies by firelight. She remembered the last thing her mother told her before she died. "Even in darkness, your heart can still choose light." Kemi wept, silent tears, not of pain, but of release. Morning came with birdsong, the kind that dances across the rooftops and seeps into your soul. Kemi sat by the fire pit, her fingers tracing the rim of a calabash bowl. She hadn't spoken to Iola since the night she cried. He hadn't forced a word either. He was giving her space, and somehow, that said more than any apology ever could. In the village, gossip had now turned into full-blown admiration. "That blind girl be lucky, oh. Iola still day sweep compound? With all him money. Me I go pray make rich man find me too." But Kemi didn't feel lucky. She felt confused, because for the first time in her life someone had chosen her. Not out of pity, not because he had no options, but because he saw something in her she couldn't even see in herself. And that terrified her. Later that afternoon, as the sun warmed the clay rooftops and sent golden light spilling through the trees, Baba Falad sent Kemi to deliver cassava leaves to Mama Doyen, the herbalist woman near the edge of the forest. Tund offered to guide her, but she said no. This time, she wanted to walk alone. Her stick tapped along the path, her sandals brushing dry leaves. She could hear the river in the distance, feel the wind changing. Then suddenly a voice, not Iola, not Tund, a woman's voice, soft, familiar. "Kemi." She froze. Who is that?" Silence. Then the breeze carried the faint smell of hibiscus and palm oil, the same scent her mother wore before she died. "Even in darkness, your heart can still choose light." Kemi's breath caught in her throat. "Mama!" She stood frozen in the middle of the path, tears threatening to fall again. But just as quickly as it came, the voice vanished. Only the wind remained. By the time she reached Mama Doyen's compound, her hands were shaking. "Kemi," Mama Doyen said, her old eyes scanning the girl. "Something trouble you?" Kemi nodded. "I think my heart is changing, and I don't know if it's right." Mama Doyen handed her a small carved stone. Warm, smooth. Sometimes the heart knows before the head can understand. Let it lead you. If the feeling brings you peace, it is not wrong. Kemi held the stone tightly, and for the first time in days, she smiled. That evening, back at the compound, she found Iola sitting quietly as always, this time peeling oranges. She stood before him. "Iola!" He looked up, surprised. She hadn't called his name since the truth came out. "Yes, I have something to say." He dropped the knife, sat straighter. "I am not whole," she said. "I don't have my sight. I don't have riches. I don't even have confidence most days. Iola didn't speak. But I know now. I have something more important than all of that. She took a deep breath. I have someone who stayed. Iola blinked, lips parting in disbelief. Kemi stepped forward, slowly, carefully. If you still want me, I will marry you. The wind picked up. The mango tree swayed. And Iola? He stood, tears in his eyes. Kemi, I never stopped wanting you. She smiled softly, and for a moment, just a flicker, it felt like light had entered her world. Kemi Falad, the blind girl everyone pitied, was now engaged to the humble stranger who turned out to be a billionaire in disguise. Mouths hung open. Tongues refused to rest. You mean she talk yes? So na poor man disguise bring him love? E fit be jazzo. Ordinary girl like that. But Kemi didn't care. For once, the world could say what it wanted. She had made her choice, and peace had followed. Preparations began. Not for a grand Lego-style wedding with flashy cars and caterers. No, this was a Panlawa village. Here, weddings were about drums, sweat, and love. The compound became alive. Women pounded yam under the sun. Children ran around with garlands of hibiscus. The elders began carving a new bench for the ceremony. But in the midst of all the joy, a shadow returned. Iola received a phone call. Late at night, under the mango tree. He didn't know Kemi was nearby, quietly sitting, listening. No, I'm not coming back, Iola said, voice tense. I've made my decision. She's my wife now. There was a long pause. Then, if father wants to disown me, let him. I didn't choose this life to be a puppet. Kemi's heart skipped. Disown? She slowly stood, confused. But before she could step forward, Iola ended the call and sat down, his head in his hands. He hadn't noticed her yet. She turned back quietly, her thoughts spinning. What is he sacrificing for me? What is the price of this love? The next day, Iola was quieter than usual. He still helped with the firewood, still fetched water, still smiled, but Kemi could feel the difference. He was carrying something heavy and hiding it behind silence. That evening, as they sat together by the fire, she finally asked, Iola, who called you last night? He looked at her, startled. You heard every word. Iola looked away, his jaw clenched. It was my father. And? He wants me to return, take over the family business, abandon this village. Abandon you. The last word nearly broke him. And will you? Iola shook his head instantly. Never. Even if it costs you your inheritance? Even if it costs me everything. Kemi's throat tightened, because for the first time, she understood. This wasn't just her story anymore. This man, who had once hidden the truth, was now giving up his entire world just to live in hers. Later that night, Baba Falad called Iola aside. They sat under the moon, on a bench carved decades ago. You're a good man, Baba said quietly, but you carry a storm inside you. Iola didn't respond. If you don't deal with your past, it will enter your future and scatter everything. He placed a hand on Iola's shoulder. Before you marry my daughter, you must make peace with your father. Iola nodded slowly, but his eyes, they were full of fire. The storm broke at midnight, not in the sky, but in Iola's heart. He tossed and turned on his raffia mat, sweat on his brow despite the cool night breeze. Baba Falad's words haunted him. Before you marry my daughter, you must make peace with your father. Iola hadn't spoken to the man face to face in 2 years. The same man who raised him to be a lion in boardrooms, a shark in the city, a legacy, not a man. And now he was living in a mud compound, fetching water for a blind girl the world had written off. You've ruined your name, his father had once shouted. You left wealth to chase poverty and shame. But Iola knew he had finally found peace. Still, Baba Falad was right. Unfinished wars always return. By morning, Iola had made his decision. He would go to Lagos, one final time, not to return as a son, but as a man. Kemi sensed it the moment he stood behind her by the kitchen. He hadn't said a word yet, but she felt his energy. Different, firm, worried. "You're leaving," she said quietly. He blinked. "How did you know?" "I know your footsteps." She turned her head toward him. "Will you come back?" Iola stepped forward and took her hands. "If you still want me, nothing on earth can stop me." Kemi nodded. Her voice was low. "Then go, win your battle, and return with peace." Iola kissed her hand. Just once. Then he left, with only a small bag and the fire of purpose in his chest. The village watched him go, some in silence, some with whispers, a few with prayers. Kemi remained by the gate long after his footsteps faded. Her heart was still, but her thoughts were a storm. In Lagos, the atmosphere was nothing like Apanlawa. Tall buildings scratched the sky. Car horns screamed like angry spirits. The air tasted of fuel, steel, and ambition. Iola entered the marble mansion of his childhood and was immediately stopped by 4 security men. "Oga say make we no allow anybody." But then the old butler saw him. His face changed instantly. "Master Iola." "Oh, you have come." Inside, his father sat by the window, dressed in fine lace, surrounded by silence. The moment Iola entered, the tension became fire. "So, the prodigal son returns," his father said without looking. "I came to speak, man to man. You left this house like a child, but I returned as a husband." The old man finally turned. "Husband? To that blind girl in the village." Iola's jaw tightened. "Her name is Kemi, and she is more than worthy. She has nothing. She has everything. And for once I do too." The room fell silent. Iola stepped forward. "I'm not asking for money or blessing. I'm telling you that I am getting married, whether you come or not." The old man's hands trembled, but he did not speak. Iola bowed slightly. "Thank you for raising me, but I no longer live in your shadow." Then he turned and walked away. Free. Back in Apanlawa, 3 days passed. Then 5. Kemi waited. Silently. Faithfully. On the 6th day he returned. Dust on his sandals. Sweat on his brow. But light in his eyes. He found her sitting near the river, where the hibiscus flowers bloomed. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you, nothing would stop me." She smiled. And just like that, the village prepared for a wedding. The drums began beating 3 days before the wedding. Low at first, just a soft rhythm echoing across the farmlands, carried by wind and curiosity. Then louder, stronger, until the entire village of Apanlawa was alive with movement. Palm fronds danced in the breeze. Ankara wrappers dried under the sun. Mortars pounded yam with joyful urgency. And in the middle of it all stood Kemi Folad. Still blind, still quiet, but glowing with something she had never known before. Belonging. Her aunts had come from nearby villages to help her prepare. They brushed coconut oil through her hair, threaded beads into her braids, and whispered old folk songs in her ears. "This girl don suffer," one auntie said softly. "Now joy finally find her." "And she chose well," another said. "That Iola boy na real man." But even as the celebration swelled, an unseen storm was gathering. Not in the clouds, but in Iola's past. The morning before the wedding, a black SUV rolled slowly into the village. It didn't belong. Shiny, tinted windows, Lagos license plate. Children ran after it, shouting, pointing. Women paused their cooking. Even Baba Falad stood at his door, watching. The car stopped at the edge of the compound. Then the door opened. A woman stepped out, tall, sharp, beautiful, with heels that dug into the village soil like they didn't belong there. She wore gold earrings and a frown that could curdle milk. Her voice, cold as iron. "Where is he?" Kemi heard the commotion from inside. Tund rushed in. "Auntie, one fine Lagos woman day outside. She day call Iola's name." Kemi's heart stilled. She stepped out carefully, guided by instinct. And then she heard it. "Iola, so this is where you've been hiding? You ran away from our engagement to come and marry this blind villager." "Engagement?" The word slapped the compound like a curse. Gasps, whispers, a sharp silence. Ayula stepped out of the hut at that exact moment. His face darkened. Amaka, what are you doing here? What do you mean? She snapped. You disappeared. No explanation. Your father had to beg me to stay silent. Kemi stood motionless, every muscle frozen. Amaka turned sharply. So this is the girl you left me for? She stepped closer. She can't even see you. Ayula stepped between them. Amaka, leave now. You owe me an explanation. No, I owed myself freedom, and I took it. The woman scoffed, her voice rising. You left a woman of status for this peasant? Kemi spoke, voice calm but cutting. I may not have status, but I have something you'll never understand. Amaka glared. What? A man who chose me, without conditions. That sentence silenced everyone. Even the mango tree seemed to pause. Amaka's face twisted. She stepped back, hissed under her breath, and climbed back into her SUV. The door slammed. Dust flew. The village stared. Kemi turned, walked back into the hut, and shut the door behind her. Inside, she stood quietly, her back against the wall. Ayula followed, afraid to speak. You didn't tell me, she said, her voice soft, but tired. I didn't think she would come. It was over, long before I met you. Still, Kemi whispered. You should have told me. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. Kemi nodded slowly. Tomorrow, I become your wife. Don't let there be any more surprises. Ayula placed his hand over hers. No more secrets. From this moment forward, only truth. And in that moment they both knew, love without truth is just a performance. The wedding morning came wrapped in gold. The sun rose gently, casting a soft orange glow across the village rooftops. Birds called out in excitement. The trees swayed lightly, as if bowing in honor of what was to come. And in the center of it all stood Kemi. Her aunties had dressed her in a deep blue lace iro and buba, with silver beads woven into her hair. Her blind eyes, though still unseeing, glistened. Her lips were soft with shea butter. Her wrists jingled with coral bangles. She was breathtaking, not just in looks, in spirit. Omo Baba Falad, you fine like goddess, one woman whispered. Blind or not, today she is a queen. Kemi smiled gently, her fingers gripping the edge of the woven mat where she stood. She couldn't see herself in the mirror, but she didn't need to. She felt beautiful, for the first time in her life. Outside the hut, the village was alive. Drummers pounded rhythms that made the earth vibrate. Young men danced in wide circles, flinging dust into the sky. Women sang old songs of marriage and praise, their hips swaying with memory. And Ayula? He stood at the far end of the compound, dressed in a white agbada trimmed with deep purple embroidery. His cap was tilted, his beard freshly trimmed, but his eyes never left the hut. He was waiting for her. But just as the ceremony was about to begin, a man arrived on a motorcycle. Dust flew as he skidded to a stop. He wore dark glasses and a tight frown. He whispered something to Baba Falad, then handed him a sealed envelope. The old man's face changed, eyes wide, lips parted, hands trembling. Kemi, he called, voice shaking. She turned her face toward him. Papa? What is it? This letter came for you. Kemi took it with steady hands, her fingers gently feeling the wax seal. Ayula rushed forward. What's going on? I don't know, Baba Falad muttered. It's from Lagos. No sender's name. Kemi opened the letter slowly, unfolded it, held it to her chest, then handed it to Tun to read aloud. The boy read, voice small but clear. To Kemi Falad, you may be blind in the eyes, but do not be blind in your heart. The man you are about to marry is not what he seems. His wealth has blood behind it. His family hides more secrets than you can carry. Walk away, or you will regret it. A hush fell. Even the drums stopped. Kemi stood frozen. Who sent this? She asked quietly. No one answered, but Ayola's face turned hard. It was Amaka, he growled. She's trying to ruin today. Baba Falad stepped forward. My daughter, what do you want to do? Kemi was silent. Her heart pounded. Her hands shook. But then, she smiled. Let her write letters, she said. Let her send warnings. She turned her face to the crowd, her voice growing. I may be blind, but I have seen Ayula with more clarity than anyone ever has. I have seen his humility. I have seen his love. And I have seen him stay when others would have left. She turned toward Ayula. I am not afraid. Because this time, I choose my future, not fear. The crowd roared. Ululations rang out. Drums returned, louder than before. Women threw palm fronds into the air. Children danced. And Ayula? He dropped to one knee, opened a simple box, and whispered, Then let me be your future. Kemi smiled. You already are. The wedding began with thunder, not from the sky, but from the talking drums. They echoed through the village like a heartbeat, calling on ancestors, spirits, and every living soul to witness this moment. Ayula and Kemi were finally getting married. The elders sat beneath a large canopy woven with raffia and white cloth. Palm wine flowed like river water. The local masquerades, Agungun, danced at the edge of the celebration, blessing the union with sacred energy. Children wore matching ankara. Women sang blessings in Yoruba. Men chanted praises for Baba Falad's daughter. Kemi sat under the ceremonial tree, veiled, her hands trembling, not from fear, from awe. She couldn't see the crowd, but she felt their joy. She heard the drums. She smelled the pepper soup, the roasted suya, the pounded yam. So this is what it means to be chosen, she whispered. Ayula approached, flanked by the village boys who had become his friends. He carried a calabash filled with palm wine and dropped to one knee before her. My name is Ayula Aden Iran, he said loudly, so the whole village could hear. And I offer myself to you, not as a rich man, not as a poor man, but as your own. Kemi reached forward, her fingers searching. Ayula placed the calabash in her hands. Do you accept me? He asked. The village held its breath. Kemi smiled. Yes. She lifted the cup and drank. The compound exploded in celebration. Ululations, shouts, drums faster than rain on a zinc roof. They were now husband and wife. But far beyond the joy and music, at the edge of the forest path leading out of Apanlawa, a black car sat quietly. Inside was Amaka, ice cold, lip trembling, phone in hand. You think it's over? She whispered. You think love wins just like that? She dialed a number. Plan B. Do it. Back in the village, night had fallen. The couple sat by the fire, surrounded by friends and laughter. Women told funny stories of Kemi's childhood. Ayula shared tales of his time pretending to be poor. Even Baba Falad danced, limping but proud. But as the fire cracked, a figure emerged from the darkness. Unfamiliar, tall, wearing a dark suit. He whispered something to Ayula. The smile disappeared from Ayula's face instantly. Are you sure? He asked. The man nodded. Kemi could feel the shift. She turned toward her husband. Ayula. What's happening? His voice was low. My father's company. Someone just emptied one of our offshore accounts. Million. How? It was inside work. A name just came up. He paused, fists clenched. Amaka. Suddenly, this wasn't just about love. It was about war. Amaka hadn't just tried to ruin their wedding. She was now attacking Ayula's legacy. And if she could do this, what else was she planning? Kemi gripped Ayula's arm tightly. She's not finished. No, Ayula said, his voice firm. But neither are we. And that night, as the village slept off the joy of celebration, the real battle began. That night, Apanlawa village was asleep. The drums were silent. The fires had died down. Even the stars seemed dimmer. But inside Baba Falad's compound, the air was thick with tension. Ayula did not sleep. He sat by the window, a small oil lamp flickering beside him, eyes fixed on the darkness outside. Kemi lay nearby, breathing softly, wrapped in a new bride's cloth, but not in peace. She had sensed it earlier, when the strange man whispered into Iola's ear. When his face changed, something had broken. "Amaka drained your account?" she finally whispered in the dark. Iola sighed. Not all of it, but enough to shake the board. She leaked internal emails. Now investors are panicking. My father called me twice. He thinks I brought this upon us. Did you? Iola turned sharply. You think I deserve this? No, she said calmly. I think love attracts both angels and demons. Iola nodded. Then the demons are circling now. By morning, 2 men in suits arrived from Lagos. They wore matching ties and grim faces. Baba Falad offered them palm wine, but they refused. They came with news. Sir, the board is calling an emergency meeting. If you don't return to the city and address this, they will vote to freeze your shares. Kemi stood quietly in the corner, listening. Iola's jaw tensed. Tell them I'll come, but only for one day. Later that afternoon, as he packed his small leather bag, Kemi touched his arm. Let me come with you. Iola hesitated. Lagos is chaos right now. I'm not asking you to protect me from chaos, she said softly. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you in it. Iola stared at her. The girl everyone once called useless. The girl they said no one would ever marry. Now she was ready to face lions for him. They left that evening. Not in a bus, not on foot, but in a black SUV, guarded by 2 discreet men who had once worked for Iola's father. As the car left Apanlawa, the village children ran after them, waving. Auntie Kemi, Auntie Iola, come back soon. She waved in their direction, her hand pressed against the glass. She couldn't see them, but she felt them, felt the weight of leaving peace to face war. Lagos welcomed them like a hungry beast. Horn blaring, heat sweating, street hawking chaos. They arrived at a hotel, not Iola's mansion. He didn't trust home anymore. The next morning, he dressed in a navy blue suit and kissed Kemi's hand. Stay here. I'll be back in 2 hours. She nodded, but deep in her chest, something itched. Fear. Meanwhile, across the island, Amaka was not finished. She sat in a salon, her nails being filed, her phone buzzing. She answered with a wicked smirk. Has he arrived? A voice replied. Yes, he's in the meeting room. Good, she whispered. Now lock the doors. Back at the hotel, Kemi was seated in the lounge, sipping warm tea, when she heard 2 women gossiping nearby. You hear say them day arrest 1 billionaire like this? For fraud him own girlfriend leak documents. Dem say na internal betrayal. Kemi's cup slipped. Tea spilled. Her heart dropped. She stood instantly. Tund, she called. Yes, young Tund had come with them. Get me a car. Now. Auntie, what'n happen? They've trapped him. Lagos traffic had never felt so cruel. Kemi sat in the back seat of the car, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the window. Tund sat beside her, eyes darting between the road and his madam's expression. Auntie, should we call the police? No, Kemi replied, voice cold but calm. This is not police work. This is family war. The car weaved through Danfos and angry Okada riders. Her heart was galloping. Her thoughts were racing, but her voice remained steady. Iola needs me now. At that moment, across the city, inside a glossy boardroom with glass walls and silent men in suits, Iola stood alone. His father was at the head of the table. The board members stared at him like a wounded animal. And Amaka? She sat by the window, calm, poison in lipstick form. This company is bleeding, one man said. Leaks, media embarrassment, investor panic. And who brought the leak? Amaka asked sweetly. Was it not the boy who ran off to marry a blind beggar? Iola's fists clenched. You will not insult my wife in this room. Amaka smirked. You insulted your legacy when you chose her over me. The board chairman cleared his throat. We're not here for love. We're here for leadership. Iola, if you don't resign voluntarily, we will vote you out. Outside, the elevator dinged. Kemi stepped out. No guard stopped her. No receptionist dared block her way. Something in her energy had changed. She walked like thunder. Tund followed closely, panting. "Auntie, are you sure?" "Yes." Back inside the boardroom, Ayula was silent, cornered. Then, the door opened. Heads turned. And in walked Kemi. No makeup, no heels, no lace gelly. Just a white wrapper, her cane, and fire in her chest. "I will speak," she said. The room froze. "And who are you?" one man asked. "I am Ayula's wife, the woman your pride has tried to bury, the one you all laughed at, until he chose me." She turned her face toward Amaka's direction. "You think I'm weak because I cannot see? But I see more than all of you. I see a man who walked away from power for peace. I see a husband who gave up thrones for love. And I see you, Amaka, a woman so empty, she'd rather destroy than heal." Amaka's smile cracked. Kemi stepped forward. "You may have sent the emails, but you forgot one thing." The board blinked. "What?" Kemi reached into her wrapper and pulled out a recorder. "This is Amaka, on the phone, ordering the leak, threatening to destroy Ayula's name. I recorded her voice the night before the wedding." Ayula's eyes widened. Amaka jumped to her feet. "That's illegal." "So is fraud," Kemi snapped. "So is betrayal." She turned toward the board. "Now, who looks unfit to lead?" The silence was long, heavy. Then the chairman cleared his throat again. "Amaka Adeniran, we will be pressing charges." She screamed, but no one stopped her as security escorted her out. Kemi turned to Ayula. He was staring at her like he had never seen her before. "You saved me." Kemi smiled. "You stayed for me. Now I fight for you." That evening, the sun dipped below the skyline. Ayula and Kemi walked out of the building hand in hand. No cameras, no crowds, just peace. And behind them they left a broken woman and a shattered plot. The morning after the storm was gentle. Lagos was still Lagos. Noisy, wild, impatient. But for Kemi and Ayula, everything felt new. They sat on the hotel balcony. 2 mugs of hot cocoa between them, hands clasped. There were no more secrets, no more shadows, no more running. "You didn't just marry me," Ayula said softly. "You saved me." Kemi smiled. "You married a village girl, Ayula. You thought you were teaching me the world. But maybe I came to teach you something too." "What?" "That strength doesn't shout. It just shows up." He kissed her hand again, like he did the very first time. And in that moment Kemi knew she had chosen well. Not because of money, not because of power, but because, even in chaos, Ayula's love remained constant. Later that day, they returned to Apanlawa. Not as visitors, not as strangers, but as husband and wife fully, officially. The villagers danced again. Tund lit firecrackers. Baba Falad shed real tears this time. Not from grief, but from overwhelming joy. As the evening came, Ayula stood before the community. He raised his voice. "You all welcomed me when I was pretending to be one of you. But now I want to return that love. For real." The people stared. "I will build a proper school here, so no other child like Tund will have to stop learning because of poverty. I will rebuild your health center, and I will stay here for part of every year. Not as a rich man, but as your brother." Shouts filled the air. "Ayula! Omo good man! God bless this marriage." Even the old herbalist, Mama Doyen, danced. But as the celebration rang out, Kemi pulled away, quietly. She walked to the riverside alone. The same river she had always gone to when she needed to think. She could hear the water moving softly, the reeds brushing together like whispers. Then, a voice behind her. "You're not going to say goodbye?" She turned her head, smiled. "Mama!" Her mother's voice. No longer a memory, no longer a dream. She felt the presence, the warmth, the approval. "You did well," the voice said. "You chose light, even in darkness." A single tear slipped down Kemi's cheek. She stood tall. "And I'm not afraid anymore." Later that night, Ayula found her standing under the stars. "Come," he said gently. "Let's rest. Just one more moment," she whispered. "I want to feel this." "Feel what?" "Peace. After war." He stepped behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and together they stood beneath the moon, saying nothing. Because sometimes love speaks loudest in silence. 1 year later, the village of Apanlawa was no longer the same. Where the old, crumbling school once stood, there was now a bright, modern building, painted in white and blue. Children laughed in classrooms. Books filled shelves. Tund now wore glasses and spoke English with too much confidence. The health center, too, had reopened. Mothers no longer feared childbirth. Old men now lived longer. And in the heart of it all, lived Kemi and Ayula, still in the same family compound, but now with a modern extension. Still humble, still grounded, but no longer struggling. Kemi had become more than just the blind girl. She was now a mentor to girls in the village. She taught them how to walk with dignity, how to fight for love that doesn't hurt, how to see with more than just eyes. Her story became legend. One morning, she sat by the riverside, alone. Ayula was away in Lagos on business. He had promised to return before sunset. But Kemi didn't mind the silence. She was now at peace with solitude. She leaned back, letting the river breeze kiss her cheeks, her belly softly rounded under her wrapper. Yes, she was expecting new life, new season, a new kind of love growing inside her. She touched her stomach gently. "You will never feel unseen," she whispered. "Not like I once did." Suddenly, footsteps approached. Not Ayula, not Tund. A stranger. "Kemi Falad?" the voice asked. "Yes, I have something for you. From Lagos." A small envelope was placed in her hand. Smooth, clean, marked with a hospital's logo. Her heart paused. She opened it slowly, felt the paper tremble between her fingers. Then Tund's voice, now a teenager, read it aloud beside her. "Miss Kemi Falad, we are pleased to inform you that your corneal transplant request has been approved. A donor match has been found. Full costs have been covered anonymously. Surgery is scheduled for June 18th at Lagos University Teaching Hospital." The wind stopped. Time slowed. Kemi did not speak. She simply clutched the paper to her chest and exhaled deeply. "Eyes?" she whispered. "Yes," Tund said, his own voice shaking. "Auntie, you might see again." That evening, Ayula returned to find her seated exactly where he had left her. But this time, her hands were holding something more than air. He rushed to her. She held up the letter. "You did this?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, I wanted to, but someone else beat me to it." They sat in silence, staring into the fading sun. Then she asked softly, "What if I see, and I no longer love what I see?" Ayula smiled. "Then close your eyes again, and love me the way you always have, with your heart." 3 months later, in a white hospital room in Lagos, under cold lights and careful hands, Kemi Falad's bandages were removed. The doctor asked her to open her eyes. Slowly, she did. Blinding light, then color, then Ayula's face, tears already rolling down his cheeks. "You're beautiful," she whispered. "I know," he laughed, wiping his face. Then she looked around the room, her first true vision of the world. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't flawless. But it was hers. Kemi never forgot the darkness. It had shaped her, strengthened her, saved her. And now that she could see, she used her new vision not for vanity, but for purpose. She traveled village to village, telling her story. She reminded the forgotten that they were worthy. She reminded the broken that love was still real. And she reminded the world that sometimes, the ones who see the most are those who spent time in the dark.